Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. And the topic for tonight is to be the king, you need to be found. So interesting that this topic of being the king of the community is getting a lot of traction. We've got new people joining us tonight, and we're finding that our list of people who are receiving our emails about this topic is growing, primarily through word of mouth or referral, and also through people requesting to go onto the list. So for those of you who haven't joined us on a webinar before, it goes for about half an hour. In fact, I aim to finish at about 8:30. We've all got other things to do, and I'd like to get the information across in that time. But however, happy to answer questions that go beyond that. So give me a call, send me a note through if you need to. Or questions. Now, in order to ask questions, what you do is you can write a note in the question section. So it's just a test that's working. Could you please put a note in there now saying that you can hear okay? Just want to check the audio, make sure that's working. And I'm just going to make sure this is covering the full screen so you can see what's happening. Let's make sure also that you can see. Yep, that's all good. Thank you, Dave. That's great. Welcome. Yeah, so just type your questions away as we go, things that come to mind, and we'll answer them either straight away or as we go. So about tonight, we've been talking about the king of your community, and really what that concept is really a way to say or to talk about the role of the vet in the community. And thank you, Kate. And to talk about the role of the vet in the community, because often we spend a lot of time, and I spend a lot of time talking to vets, and other vets talk to other vets about issues within the business, but we don't often talk to our clients or look at the way the place is viewed from a client point of view. So really what we're doing tonight is continuing this thread of trying to understand how we're viewed in the community. And one of the key things that came out of our research, we've been researching the role of the vet in looking after, or from a pet owner perspective. And pet owners' number one issue is that they're finding that they just don't know what to do and when. And when we talk about where does the vet sit in that relationship between the pet owner, rather than being really close to the pet owner in terms of, and I've always thought the vet as being, and a lot of practitioners think this, that the vet is, from a client's perspective, a pet owner's perspective, integral to their lives. And so if you did a sort of a drawing of having a dinner party or having a cocktail party, you know, you'd have the client standing there, and in our mind, the vet's in that little circle having a talk about how the day's been. But in fact, from the pet owner's perspective, the vet is on the far corner or even outside the building. And you know, that really means that we don't see the vet very often. They're hard to get to. And if I have a question, I'm not going to ask my vet, I'll ask someone else. So that's pretty revealing, I think, and pretty shocking, certainly shocking from my perspective. But looking at, really the next step is to look at and understand why that is the case, and also what we can do about it. So tonight, what I'm actually focusing on is one of those areas, which is, and it's really the first area, is that if you are going to be a king, and a king means the leader in animal health care in your community, and you know, there are a lot of vets who really want to be the leaders in animal health care in their community. You need to be found. You need to be visible. And that doesn't mean just having a nice sign out the front, which is important. Today, it means you need to be found online. So tonight, we're going to have a look at what you look like online and why pet owners can't find you. And that's a bit presumptive, obviously, because pet owners might be able to find you, but let's have a look. And then we're going to look at traffic generation services. So once you've established whether or not you can be found, how can you improve it? Well, traffic generation services are a good tool to look at to improve that visibility. I'll explain why. And then what does that mean for improving your visibility? So let's get stuck into that right now. There's a couple of questions coming through, so just bear with me while we answer those. Okay. So let's have a start. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a few clinics, and I'm just going to pick a few from people that are joining tonight, and just make some. Let's have a look and see what it looks like. So the first thing is, what do you look like online? So I'm just going to open up a new window now. If you guys have been receiving the emails that I've been sending you, you'll notice that when you're going to start searching for yourself to have a look at what you look like online, it's no good going into a normal browser window. So you can see this is a normal browser window. I'm using Chrome, and there's obviously lots of different browsers. A browser is the tool with which you look at the internet with. So the most common one is Internet Explorer. And I actually recommend you don't use that because it has a lot of limitations, and a lot of online tools are not used or maximized to use Internet Explorer anymore. So I'd use something else like Chrome, which is Google's free browser, or Firefox. And if you want information on how to get those browsers, just send me an email. But basically, you can get them online. But let's say we're going to use Chrome tonight. Now, one of the clinics we're going to look at tonight is, let's see, from one of the people who's attending. Let's have a look. I'm just going to see whether I can do a search here. Earlsville. Now, by the way, I'm not picking on, or I haven't selected any of these practices for any particular reason, other than you're attending. So it could apply to anyone. And what I'm going to talk about today does apply to most people that are attending tonight. So this one here, this is the clinic. It's in Queensland. So if I was the vet from Earlsville, so I'm Owen from Earlsville, I should say, and I want to have a look at how the consumers find me online, I'm most likely going to dial my name up into a browser and have a look. Now, there's a couple of problems with that, and this I did cover this in a previous email. First of all, knowing what to type in. So I put in Earlsville Vet Surgery, and that's the name, obviously, of the, beg your pardon, I've spelled it incorrectly, but Earlsville Vet Surgery. There we go. That is obviously the name of the clinic, and of course, I'm coming up first here. So if I'm the vet, I think, oh, I'm doing really well. So it means people can find me. And I often have this conversation where I'm talking to vets and they say, yeah, no, I'm coming up. I'm doing really well on Google. And what that usually means is they've typed in their own name into Google and up has come the clinic. Now, the problem with that is that for most pet owners, they're not going to type in the name of the vet clinic. They're going to type in something that relates to the location. Now, if your clinic name happens to relate to the location, you're going to do okay. So this clinic's actually in Earlsville, and so they're most like the search they're most likely going to do is actually not Earlsville Vet. It's going to be Vet Earlsville, and there you go. It's come up, so that's working. However, the other thing about the browser, the Chrome browser, any browser you use, it's going to try and give you results that you want to see. So if it knows from your previous searches, and a lot of clinics have had previous searches, that you're looking for your own clinic, it's going to put your clinic up regardless of whether or not that's actually the best result. So doing a search like this for yourself in a normal browser is flawed. So the first thing you've got to do is you have to get a browser working in a private mode or incognito mode. So Chrome has it. You can see it's here. I'm just going to open that window. So just bear with me while we bring that up. All right, you can see here. So I'll just go back to that again. So what you do is you go here and you click on New Incognito Window. In Firefox, it has a thing called Private Window. So use a private window. Now what that does, and it explains it here, is that it's looking, when you're looking, it won't, the Google won't be able to trace what you're looking at, and so it'll give you as true a result as possible. So let's go back and do that search now for Earlsville. And I'm expecting that for, oh, I beg your pardon, that's not the search we wanted to do. Vet Earlsville, let's do that again. So I'm expecting as it has that it's going to come up, and that's fine. Now, the next thing I wanted to say was most clinics will search for the name of their clinic, Vet Irville, and they think, oh, I'm doing really well. And they may well be doing well for that search term. But what we know is that consumers search for a broad range, probably within 4 to 7 kilometre range of suburbs around the clinic. And if your clinic's not found for those surrounding suburbs, you're going to miss out on a massive chunk of business. And for most practices in Australia, they do not come up for those surrounding suburbs. So let's have a look. So we know that Irville's in Cairns. There we go, Cairns. So let's have a look now and see how they're going if we do a search for Vet Cairns. Okay. Now, you may want to, you guys may want to qualify how we're doing the search because you know your areas better, and Cairns may not be the main search term. However, if I'm a pet owner searching in Cairns and I am searching for a vet, then you can see straight away that the Irville clinic doesn't come up within the first few entries. So just to clarify, these entries here are ads, and about 25% of people will go there. So it's good to be in the ads, and the ads work well. You get about 20 to 25% of your traffic. Then if you go to the organic section, which is here, you can see that Cairns Vet comes up first, Cairns Vet comes up second, and then if you move into the map section, you can see there's Irville sitting down there. Well, there's very few people who, if they're going to look in the organic search terms, are going to go into this section here. So Irville straight away is missing out on a lot of traffic. So let's have a look and see whether there are any other suburbs in the area. And we're going to go and have a look at this map now. And this is the process I want you guys to do, or you can do yourself. It's going to give you a really good indication. So we've already established that for the main, probably one of the main search terms in that area, the clinic's not doing well. Now we're on a map here, and Earl, you can see, let's move that out of the way. You can see that Earlville is down here. I'm just going to zoom in just a little bit. And there's Earlville there. Now, it's quite reasonable to expect that if Earlville is a search term, so if a consumer is putting in the word vet Earlville or Earlville vet, but it's generally vet Earlville, they probably might also put in Westcourt and those people that live there, which is only, what, a kilometre away, could potentially be clients. So let's try vet Westcourt. By the way, if you've got any questions, just jump in, will you, please? I'll put in the word Queen. Let's just try without Queensland and see whether it gives. There you go. Now, you can see straight away that if someone's typing in the word vet Westcourt, and by the way, if they're standing in Westcourt on a mobile phone and they just put in the word vet, it will know they're in Westcourt, and this is basically the search term that Google's going to be doing. So let's see what comes up. Well, first of all, Balaclava vet comes up. That's probably because of its address, which is Westcourt. But where is Earlville vet? There, no. There, no. There, no. So now this is my screen, and you can see straight away that there's more entries down here. I'm sure we'll find it if we keep going down somewhere. We haven't. But the point is, if you're not found in the first 2 or 3 entries, the chance of you getting a person clicking on your site is very low. But you can see straight away that there's no Earlville vet. And to reinforce the point, let's have a look at another one. Or not reinforce the point, maybe to see whether there's another opportunity. So let's do Bayview Heights. Okay, so vet Bayview Heights. Now that may be an area that's not just in Queensland. Yeah, they're all Queensland. Okay, there you go. Now, so let's have a look. There's no one coming up well in Bayview Heights. The fact there's yellow pages here tells me that no vet clinic in this area, and it may be a good reason, is optimizing for this search term. So there'd be people searching in that area probably who you could be picking up. So there's no one here. There's no one here, there's no one here. And when you see directories coming up like this, it means that Google hasn't got anything better to put there. These are junk, really low value links. Then if you even get into your map section, there's no one who's optimizing for this area as well. All right, so that is the first example of why clinics are not being found. So the first thing I wanted to look at was, what does it look? What I want to talk about was, what does it look like from a pet owner when they're looking for you? Well, they just cannot find you. And what we want to talk about tonight is how you can actually improve that. The second biggest search term that people use after location. Now, location is by far the biggest one. It's obvious people want to know. They want to find a vet, and it's a location-based search. The next biggest search term, let's move on to it here, is for the words dog training. So let's do dog training and a dog training and associated words, Cairns, or let's try Earlville. Earlville, dog training, Earlville. The first thing is an ad which doesn't actually relate to Queensland. And the next one is a local directories, and then there's another local directories, and then there's the Earlville Vet Surgery. Now, that's actually doing relatively well. Earlville Vet Surgery, so it's 1, 2, 3 down, but they could be improving that. It could either be in the ad up here or a #1 position. And you scroll down, you can see some other entries as well there. So compared to a lot of clinics, they're actually doing pretty well there. And the reason why they've got that in there is because they have dog obedience training listed here. And most clinics don't have dog obedience training listed in their pages. Let's try another area. So I think we did West Court. Let's do dog training. West Court. Once again, yellow pages, which means there's no good entries. Yellow pages, no good entries, no good entries. And this is a huge opportunity, and it's an opportunity that pretty much every practice who hasn't used any tools to improve their visibility has. So let's go back to the original screen. To be the king, you need to be found. So what you look like online, why pet owners can't find you. Is that clear? I've basically said, I want to know if this is clear, that when pet owners are searching for you, they're searching for words that your websites are not coming up for. Does that make sense? And you can do the search yourself. So let's clarify. You need to get incognito mode or private mode. So incognito mode in Chrome, private mode in Firefox. Then you need to search for the surrounding suburbs. So using the word vet, then suburb for your clinic, and see what comes up. And just the local suburbs. I mean, the suburbs within the 7-kilometre radius. And then search for the words dog training and your suburb or surrounding suburbs and see what happens. And if you're doing better than Earlville, I'd be very surprised. Earlville was doing really poorly, which is pretty much a status for most clinics on location, and did relatively well on dog training for one location. And if anyone would like to ask a question, please just type the question in. Dave, I don't know if there's an incognito mode in Safari. I'll check that out. No, I don't think there was. Dave reckons there isn't one. So as far as I know, I don't actually use Safari much, and not because it's not very good, but because Chrome has a lot more functions on it, and so Firefox and Chrome are the two leading browsers for private modes. Okay, so that's that. Now let's have a look at the next bit, traffic generation services. So what that means is, let's have a look at services that can make you more visible. And the reason I've got these three on here is because Census and Reachlocal have been used by a few practices. I would say that maybe 15% of practices have used Census for traffic generation, and that specifically is a specific service they have. A lot of practices use Census, but they have a particular thing called Call Tracker, and then Reachlocal has been used by about 5% or less, and then Google AdWords is used by another group, maybe 5 to 10%. All right, so let's go back to have a look at Ervil for a minute. Let's have a quick look here. Let's go back to here. All right, so we're going back to Ervil for a minute here. And we did a few searches here and a few things started coming up. Let's have a look here. Okay, so if you have a look here, this pink area here is AdWords. And AdWords is the tool that Google uses to allow businesses to buy position. So the reason it's in pink is because the most valuable part of Google is the bit that's not in pink, which is the bit here, the organic search. In fact, Google's built its reputation on providing good quality search results for punters, people who are looking. But in order to generate money, they introduced a paid area which goes above here. Sometimes also appears at the bottom. There aren't any here. They tend to move it around a bit, and down the side here. Okay. So this is a really good way for you to improve your visibility and, as a result, traffic. The other way to do it is to improve your position in your organic search, and we'll talk about that secondarily. So in order to use AdWords, there are two main ways you can do it. Actually, there's three main ways you can do it. One, you can go and do Google AdWords yourself, and you can just register for Google AdWords on Google and start buying the ads and follow the instructions. And the issue with that is that you'll find it's quite expensive, and that's primarily because you don't have expertise in knowing how to set the ads up at the right price. The way it works is that every time someone clicks on this ad here, the clinic gets charged. The second way you can do it is you can use a third-party service to actually manage it for you. Now, Census and Reachlocal both use AdWords to generate traffic. So what they do is in Census case, the service is called Call Tracker, and what it'll do is they'll buy ads for you. This is probably one here. Let's have a look at that right now. Let's just load that one up. Yeah, see this directory is coming through here. It's most likely Yellow Pages, and it will generate traffic into your website. So Yellow Pages provide that service called Click Tracker, and the bottom line on Yellow Pages is that it's highly expensive. So the cost per phone call that results when you use these services is sitting at about $40 to $50 per phone call. So I would recommend you have a look at your Yellow Pages contract, because most of you will be using Yellow Pages at one stage, and if you are using any call tracking services, then you're paying over the odds if you're using Yellow Pages. The second service that uses AdWords to generate calls is called Reachlocal. And let's have a look at one over here for a minute. I'll show you. Let's see if I can find one here for you. Reachlocal is a similar service, and that's not it. And they also charge a fee to run them, and I can't find an example for you straight away. But the cost per phone call when they run those, Reachlocal runs their services, is about $30. Here's the website for Reachlocal, so you can have a look at their services. Now, a little bit about Reachlocal. 18 months ago, a couple of our clients were using Reachlocal, and they were actually getting very good results. In that, when you use Reachlocal, it tracks all the phone calls for you and delivers you new business. Now, those calls are going to cost you $30 per call, but in the absence of anything better, at that stage, Reachlocal was a good option. The third option is to use a service where a specialist uses the AdWords like us. So we do it PetPack, and we do exactly the same thing with AdWords and generate traffic coming into the websites like this website here. And the cost per phone call to run those AdWords is about $5 per phone call or less. So certainly the summary of that point is that AdWords is a really good way for you to increase your visibility. So if you're Earlville and you're doing okay for Earlville vet surgery, but you're not doing very well for vet Cairns, or you're not doing very well for, let's get rid of that for a moment, vet Westcourt, then what I'd be recommending is you buy AdWords and you use an expert to implement it for you. So that's what we do. Or you can find another AdWords expert, and we can tell you that you should be paying that expert. It should be costing you $1 per click or less, which results in a phone call cost of about $5 or less. And that's the benchmark with which you should be testing it or measuring the success of the service. Any other questions on that while we're doing it? Okay, so yes, any other questions about traffic generation? Okay, so yes, the other part of traffic generation, if we go back to here, so we've done the ads, is a great way to improve your visibility. And by the way, you also can run ads for dog training as well, because part of the process when you're running an AdWords campaign, particularly if you use an AdWords expert, is they will research in a lot of detail what are the search terms that people are looking for in your area. And that's how we found out that dog training and associated terms was the second biggest group of words. And so we run a lot of ads in that area. Now, just a word about that. It's really important to understand what the consumer is looking for and not what you're looking for. From a vet's perspective, the word dog training is not applicable. You would use the word puppy preschool in most cases. However, we know that consumers don't know that word, so they don't type it in. And the closest thing they know is dog training or puppy training. So that's what they'll be searching for. So often when you're running these ads, you'll use words that you don't use. And so to ensure that you're not feeling like you're promoting a service you don't deliver, you can, in the text, make sure you confirm what you're doing, or when they click through to your website, you explain. You say, look, a lot of people call it dog training, or the way we deliver dog training is we recommend puppy preschool, which is when you start socialisation between 8 and 16 weeks, or whatever the text is you want to write about. We also find that sometimes that pet owners misspell words, and so our ads have the misspellings in them, because if you don't have the misspellings in them, your ads won't come up. So running an AdWords campaign does require an expert's input. Now, in the last couple of minutes, and if there are any other questions, please put them in there. And Josh, I have got your question. I'll come back to you in 2 secs. The next area to improve your search on is obviously the organic search area here. And this is actually more difficult for clinics because it requires you to put good quality content on your websites regularly. So once a month, we recommend running a blog on your website and using content that relates to these search terms. And secondly, making sure the company that's running your website is doing good basic SEO to your pages. So SEO means making sure these terms up the top here and then in the description are actually helping the search terms. So sometimes you'll see clinics where this clinic's actually done a very good job. Sometimes you'll see clinics where the text in here is unrelated to what a pet owner would be looking for. So you can see here that Dallas, who's set this up, has put in that they're local pet care experts with 3 convenient locations: Cairns, Arroglen, and Gordonvale. So that's important for someone who's searching in the area. They'll just read that and say, oh, yeah, that's actually relevant to me. So improving your organic search is difficult because it actually requires your input. Whereas if you run an AdWords campaign, particularly if you use an expert to help you do it, then you don't have to do anything other than to review the ads the expert wants to run, make sure they're in line with what you're doing, and then you let it sit back and let it run. So we certainly advocate AdWords. We find it, if it's run effectively, it's very cost effective. We also advocate continuing to build the organic search in your website, and that's what we help clinics do. So, and there's a third area that's important for helping people find your website, making yourself more visible, being more visible, and that is building your brand in the community. And that means doing things offline as well. So a good example would be, I'm going to show you another clinic website here, a very successful website. These people get more visitors per month than almost any other website in Australia. And one of the major sources of their traffic, interestingly, is people who type in the word inner south vets. Now, it's very unlikely that someone who doesn't know inner south vets would type in the word inner south vets. So they already have an idea of the name of the practice. So they've either seen the sign or they've heard from word of mouth that inner south vets is where I want to go. And that's what we call very strong brand awareness in the community. Whereas if we go back to these searches like vet cans, that's someone who's quite likely just looking for a vet. They don't have a connection with someone, or they know there's a vet in that area they want to look at. Whereas if someone types in the word inner south vets, they're looking for this place particularly. So the third area in which you can actually build your visibility is making sure people know about your brand in the community, and that's really about a whole range of things, from doing a great job to being present at community events and doing other sorts of advertising. And in fact, I can't give you any details of what activities work better than others, but this clinic has a very high level of people typing the word inner south vets, much more than the average clinic. So just as we wrap up, just the last couple of questions here. Josh, a couple of things from you. Private mode for Internet Explorer. I actually wasn't aware there was a private mode for Internet Explorer. If there is one, then that's fine, use that. But just to reinforce, I would recommend you use, if you can, a different browser as well, because you'll find that websites operate a lot better with, increasingly better with something like Google or Firefox. And then Josh has also asked, how do you manage conflict of interest between promoting neighbouring clinics? And I think what Josh is talking about is how do we at PetPack manage it? And that's a really good question, because in the research that we've been doing with pet owners, the biggest competition out there is not neighbouring vet clinics, but it's other businesses. So a good example would be, if we go back to our dog training here. So dog training Westcourt, for instance. Now that's not showing us where the competition is, but we'll use this one as an example. Often when you do a dog training search in your area, you'll find you get a lot of dog trainers coming up. That's a very good example of where you've got a young pet, or a family with a pet who's looking for some training advice, and they go to someone who comes up on the list, like a dog trainer. And the dog trainer is not necessarily the best person to talk to, it's the vet. But the vet's not visible, so they don't get the call. So there's an overwhelming amount of competition comes from non-veterinarians. The other big competition where vets are losing a lot of business to are these people, pet stock. Yeah, there's the training school. So any other services in the area, here we go, Pup Stars, daycare and grooming, these sorts of services are picking up a lot of business that could otherwise be going to vets. And I can't give you a percentage, but I suggest it's something along the lines of, from a pet owner's perspective, it's 80% non-vet out there and 20% or less is vet. So the other thing I want to say to Josh and to everyone about conflict of interest between promoting neighbouring clinics is that we have a situation in two parts of Australia where we have 3 clinics within competing distance of each other. And in both those areas, the clinics are using our measuring service, where we measure the amount of phone calls they get, and they are at the same level or above what we expect for these clinics to do. So we're happy with we're happy with that. They're happy with that. That question has been raised, but at this stage, there's no evidence that their business is being limited by the other practices. And I think it's primarily because the biggest opportunity is to be found in these areas for dog training, to be found in these areas for these suburbs where you're not even found currently, and pick up the business. Now, Tracy, I've got a couple other questions here. I'm just going to answer these as we go. So yeah, Tracy's asked a really good question. She said, is there any way for practices to limit where their ads are seen? In the last Cairns vet search, there were several Vic clinics on the sidebar ads. Do they pay more, or is it a blanket price? Now, it's a really good point. When you're running a Google AdWords campaign, if you use someone who knows what they're doing, they will limit the geographic range. We limit our geographic range from between 4 and 7 kilometres, which means the ads do not appear outside that zone. And we tailor it to each practice. We've got a couple of rural practices where we're making it a bit larger. But you will often see, well, if you do see ads for vet clinics appearing in zones that are outside their area, they're wasting their money. And what happens is, so that's an example of an inefficient service. Yellow Pages is renowned, and so is Reachlocal, for putting ads in zones out of the area of the practice. Their argument is that you never know, that person might want to come and see you. However, it takes more work to zone down, to limit down those campaigns. And secondly, most practitioners know that their A-class clients do not come from a long way away. So most of their business is local, and as a result of that, we're able to limit the AdWords cost per month to somewhere between $50 and $100 a month, whereas there are numerous clinics who have been spending about $800 a month with Yellow Pages. Reachlocal's charges are somewhere between $1,200 and $1,500, and that's partly because they're getting people click on those ads who don't end up becoming clients. So yeah, it's really important. We certainly think it's worth limiting the geographic spread. So, and there's a question here from Dave saying, what are places like Petstock doing that we're not? And the one thing I can add to say about that is that in the recent research we've been doing with pet owners, here's a story. So I'll change her name. Let's call her Julie. Julie's the owner of a 1-year-old Schnauzer. And I said to her, how did you choose the food that you're feeding your dog? And she said, well, the breeder, the dog came over from Tasmania, the breeder said you must feed this type of food, blah, blah, blah. And so before I'd seen the vet, I did try and find that food. And it was a bit difficult because I had to go somewhere to get it. Then I went to see the vet for the final vaccination, and the vet said, no, you need to feed this type of food, which is a food the clinic had. And so I took that food. But the next time I went to get the food, to buy the food, I couldn't get to the clinic. It was too hard to get to. But I go past Petstock every day, so I just dropped in there and then asked them what they thought. And they suggested a third type of food, and I've been using that ever since. So I'm going to type in the answer into here. There's a word that I learnt about this, which is difficult to swallow from an expert's point of view, but it's true. Convenience beats expert. I'll send that to everyone. So basically, these places are more convenient, and there may be some other factors, like they've got more stock and they feel like they've got lots of stuff there, or they're more approachable. But certainly, they make it a lot easier for people to get to, and that's what we're up against. So really, what we're interested in doing is finding ways to engage pet owners better and be more useful to clinics. More useful to pet owners. But if we're just focusing on today, one thing you can do straight away is make sure your clinic is visible online. And as we've just demonstrated tonight, clinics generally are not visible. So if we break this down into chunks, I think that's something that would be a great thing to focus on for the first quarter of the year, is to get yourself visible. Get yourself, if you want instant visibility, get yourself an AdWords campaign. Get someone who knows what they're doing. We can do it for you, or you can get someone else. But get an AdWords expert to do it. Don't use Census. Don't use Yellow Pages. Don't use Reachlocal. Use someone who's an expert in AdWords. And if you want to run by, if anyone wants to run by what charges their Google AdWords person is suggesting they pay, I'm happy to tell you whether we do better or what we think of that price. I'm happy to share what our prices are. All right, everyone, thank you very much. If there are no more questions, I'm going to sign off. And appreciate everyone for joining in. Have a lovely evening wherever you are, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you.